Hey, Dino here. Today I want to talk to you about an Apigee feature that we call custom attributes, which you can attach to different entities inside the Apigee model, including configured applications and API products and the operations inside the API products. You can get access to these custom attributes at runtime after verifying credentials, either via verify API key or the OAuth 2 verify access token policy. Let's see how that works. So I have here's my Apigee control plane. I have for illustration an API proxy called test verify that I built to use either verify API key, that's here in one of the flows, or verify access token. You wouldn't typically do this in an API proxy. I'm doing it only for the purposes of illustration and demonstration. And again, as many of my examples and videos do, I'm using this as a loop-back proxy. So the typical model is a client application connects to Apigee, which is a reverse proxy, and it might do some mediation, security mediation, credential checking, and so on before proxying the request to some upstream system. In this example, it's a loop-back, so the proxy verifies credentials, but it doesn't contact an upstream system. Again, I'm just doing this for the purposes of illustration. So you're typically going to have that upstream system in a real proxy. So let's look. There's one flow that does verify API key and another that does OAuth 2 verify access token. What do those policies look like? Very simple. The verify API key policy just takes this one element. Where should the policy find the API key? And I'm telling it, find it in the query param. Super simple. And then what it'll do is verify that the key is current, not revoked, and is appropriate for this particular API proxy. And then implicitly, it will load into context variables the custom attributes, and I'll show you that in a little bit. The verify access token policy is similar. You specify the operation, which is verify access token, and where to find the access token. And here I'm diverting from the OAuth 2 specification that says pass access tokens in the authorization header. Instead, just for the purposes of the demonstration, I'm passing it as a query parameter just to make things simple. Like verify API key, the verify access token policy will set custom attributes, set context variables with the values of custom attributes on the app, API product, or API product operation. Let's check out the entity configuration model now. We'll go into the list of API products. For the purposes of this demonstration, I've created a product called Verify Test, and I have attached a custom attribute to that product. It's called custom attr on product. We can attach any value we like on that. I also have a single operation for the proxy test verify, any path, these methods, and on that operation, I've got a single custom attribute called custom attr on operation with a thing called the value, another value. So those are the attributes on the product and on the operation within the product. If I flip over to the app, there's exactly one developer app configured to be authorized on this API product called Verify Test App 1. There are credentials there, which we're going to need in a moment. And you can also see a custom attribute on the app called custom attr on app with the value hello world. All right, so that's all the setup. Let's actually see this working. So the first thing I'll do is I'll get the client ID and the client secret. I'm going to paste that into my shell, which I'm going to use for my terminal, which I'm going to use to invoke curl. So that's the client ID, and we'll also get the client secret I'm going to need just the client ID for the verify API key operation, and I'll need both of these for the OAuth, verify access token operation. All right, now back to the API proxy. Start a debug session. Okay, while that starts up, let's invoke. Let's prepare to invoke the first operation. So that'll be my Apigee endpoint is available at that endpoint, and the API proxy is test verify. I believe the flow is API key, and it takes a query param API key, and that will be the value of client ID. So what we're seeing now is the response from that API proxy. It verified, the proxy verified the API key, and then implicitly retrieved values from the custom attributes on the product operation and app. What does that look like? Let's go to the debug session. Here is the debug session for that particular request. There is my verify API key policy, and you can see in here it sets variables containing the values that are interesting to us. Here is the debug session that shows we're setting the custom attribute on the API product. Here is the debug statement saying we're setting a variable to hold the custom attribute from the operation. And there should be one more, which is the statement that says we're setting the variable to hold the value of the custom attribute on the app. So those are all in there. And going back to the develop tab, I could see how, I could show you how that response gets, that you saw gets constructed. This is a message template, so anything in curly braces inside this message template is replaced by the value of that named context variable. So this is the name for the custom attribute that you would use on the custom attribute of the product. The prefix is always verify API key. The second element is the name of the policy, the verify API key policy that preceded this. And then thereafter it's the API product dot and the custom attribute on the API product, or app dot custom attribute on the app, or in the case of the operation, API product dot operation dot attributes, and then the custom attribute on the operation. So that's how we retrieve all that. Going back to the terminal, you can see these are the values that I received, which is exactly what we expect. All right. Let us now switch to the token scenario. For that, I'm going to need a request to obtain a token, generate a token, and I've got a separate API proxy that dispenses tokens. So I've just passed in the client ID and the client secret to that token dispensing proxy. I'm using the client credentials grant type. So I'll just set this access token as a shell variable. Now we're going to go to my prior request. In order to get the verified token capability or flow, I need to use token and token here, and this should be access token. So that's a similar request. And here again, you can see I have the values from the API, the custom attributes on the API product, on the app, and on the operation. All right, let's go back to the debug session. This is the one that was already open, so we should see another transaction here. There's the one that used verify access token, and similarly, you can see that we got variable settings on to load the custom attributes on the product and on the operation. So that's what those look like. And as well, in the response for token, you can see these are the variable names that I'm using. Basically, they're the same variable names, but without the prefix of verify API key dot and then the verify API key policy name. For whatever reason, when you're using verify access token, you don't need any prefix and you don't need the policy name. It's just it's a little simpler. API product dot custom attribute name on API product, app dot etc., and then operations dot etc. And that is reflected in this payload. Okay, one more thing I'm going to point out, and that is if I should change the attribute on the app or on the product or on the operation by going into the edit panel and changing this new value, this change will not be reflected immediately in a new operation that I try against the same API proxy. The reason for that is Apigee maintains a cache of token against all the attributes for that token. So if I've, when I update, that cache may or may not expire. In this particular trial, we see the new value is propagated, which just means that the cache expired. Now we know the cache is fresh. Let me show this again. This will be the third value. And if I invoke that same call again, you're seeing that we still get the second value, the thing that I called new value originally, and that will happen for the next 3 minutes until the cache in the Apigee runtime expires. At which point, you'll see the new value, the third value, appear for that custom attribute. That also applies to custom attributes that you apply to the product or the operation. All right, so that's a review of how custom attributes on the app and the product operation work in Apigee Apps. I hope this has been helpful. Let me know if you got questions or suggestions on future screencasts. Till then, keep it digital.